Hare Krishna. So before I start, I would like to seek the forgiveness of everyone who's hearing this. I'm a brahmachari, and this is a topic that I get a lot in private forums, and I've been avoiding to put on a public forum. But many times people ask this question, and a lot of the girls who ask this question, when we give the answer, they are satisfied. But I most often than not, I find a lot of men, a lot of boys who ask this question in a very, because they don't understand probably, and they find it that how is it possible? This is all wrong. They have a vendetta kind of thing in the name of trying to, be socially equal and protect the women's rights. I find the women kind of understand more, and the men kind of have an issue. So we thought of putting up this question, and let's see how we can reply that will soothe the minds and the hearts of the men who ask this question, because I'm very confident that the women, they can understand this better. So the question is basically that in Indian culture, there's a practice that when a woman has her periods, her menstruation, she can't enter the temple, she can't do puja, or she cannot be touched because she's in a contaminated state, right? So they're saying that she's what is known as ashuddha or asaucha kal during the contaminated time. So then this person is, kind of like postulating that, oh, maybe in the olden days that is true, but nowadays there are so many hygiene products, female hygiene products, like sanitary pads, sanitary napkins, and tampons, and so on and so forth. So you should not think like this, right? The women should not be discriminated. Well, let's see how things were in the earlier days. In olden times, when a woman has her menstruation or periods, ladies were always given a separate area, a room where they can stay safely. This was known as the Antarwadi. Men always stayed in the Bahirangan. They stayed in the external corridors of the house. Women always stayed inside. Even in that inside area, there's a special room kept for ladies who are having their periods. They would always be separated. Why? Was this some kind of oppression? No. People lived in joint families, and the men always stayed together. Ladies always stayed together. And in that scene, no, if they wanted kids, they would husband and wife would come together with the blessings of the whole family, and then they would unite in a room. So this act of separating the lady who has her menstruation is not degrading to the women, but actually it's actually giving her space and respect, because they understand that during this time there's physical pain, there's mental pain, mental anguish. Person becomes more irritable, hormones are fluctuating, right? They're having mood swings, they have cramps, they're sweating. It is just so difficult for them to handle that it's best to just give them a break, allow them to rest. So these particular days they are given to rest, right? And then for those people are saying that it is ashuddha or it's not pure. Well, news to all of us: every one of us is not pure. That's why we all have to take bath every day, right? Whether you're male or female. If we go to the toilet, right, one number, two number, it's considered ashuddha. We're all considered contaminated. We have to do some process to come clean, take bath. Okay, when there's bleeding, even if you're a man, like for a man is a pujari and he has cut his hand, he can't enter the altar. He's not allowed, because you're bleeding. If you're doing some service for the deity, you cut your hand, you have to go out immediately, wash your hand, stop the bleeding. When the bleeding stops, then you can take achaman and purify yourself and come back. So these are common things. If there's a dead body, for example, you touch a dead body, whether you're male or female, you become unclean. So these rules are not only for women, these rules are for everyone, right? In states where there's a dead item, mala or mutra, urine or feces, or whenever there's blood, these are all things that are considered impure, right? Bodily discharges, these are all considered impure. So these states affect both men and women. So these are just certain conditions when things become unclean, but it doesn't mean that they always stay unclean. They can be purified. Okay. So in modern day times now, we can expect that Antarwadi system. Now things have changed. Women, they go out to work, they move around. We meet them in buses, we meet them in trains here and there, whatnot. So not only women, we meet so many people, and that is a time that we brush shoulders or we meet people. We can't think that who is pure, who is impure, who has taken bath, who has not taken bath, isn't it? So in Kali Yuga, things are very messy. This is not something that we should focus on, right? It's a messy age. But this principle is not there to put down women. So for this reason is that women don't enter temple during this time, because they are not in a pure state. Like I said, if a man was having bleeding, he's cut, he is not allowed to enter the puja room as well. He's not allowed to do puja. So for this reason, the lady is also not allowed, or not advised, you can say, to go to the temples. And this has been, every girl knows this, right, in history. It's not to put down the women, but actually it is, it's being compassionate, it's being understanding that this is a tough time, body is going through a tough time, it is a resting time, take a break, it's a physical phase. Now if you think about it, the so-called social equality is telling that even in your difficult time, even in your physical phase of distress and difficulty, even during your cramps, and go to work, do this, do that. But the traditional culture was no. If you're having a difficult, take rest. So that's the time there was no cooking, not doing housework, not doing anything, just relax and resting, right? Keeping cool and resting. So much difficulty the body is going through. So those days in joint families, when one lady is unable to cook or clean, the other ladies they all do the housework. In some families where there are no other daughters, right, to do the work, sons would cook, husband would cook. This was the culture, right? So this was actually compassionate to give her a break, right? So, but you contrast this with nowadays nuclear families where the lady has to do everything. Actually, it is more injustice. This is the real oppression on the lady actually compared to traditional cultures. And so that's the first point about touching temple and puja. Okay, they may not do arati and the puja direct with the deities, but a process like chanting Hare Krishna, this can be done by anyone in any state, Shuddha or Ashuddha. Anyone can chant. So that still can go on. Still can do Shravanam, hearing lectures and praying. That can go on. They may not do direct puja, as in taking the paraphernalia and doing the process. So that is discussing about touching, temple, and puja. One more point I like to talk about, like this person said, Indian culture. So this is not only Indian culture. If you look around the world, if you look at ancient Middle East, the Jews, right, till today, Jewish people, if a lady is having her menstruation, her period, she's actually given a separate room. She sleeps on a separate bed. She moves away from the men. Can you imagine? This is also there in Judaism. Similarly, East Asian cultures, Japanese, Chinese, they have this certain kind of things, because everyone realizes this is a recovery period needed. Now, if you look at Islam, religion in Islam, so during, if a lady has her period during Ramadan, so Ramadan is the time they fast. But if she's having her period, she's excused from fasting because the body needs to rest. She needs to eat. She doesn't have to fast. And if she's having her menstruation, then she doesn't have to go. She cannot pray actually. She cannot do wuduk. She cannot do her salat. She cannot do because she will take rest at that time. It's considered a state of impurity for some time being. It's not forever. So it is not a just an Indian thing. It's quite prevalent in many cultures because biologically everyone is similar, whether they be of any religion, and people realize that there's a need. Okay. Now comes to the third point of hygiene. So here the postulation is that previous times they were not very good in hygiene. Now so many hygiene stuff. Well, on that point, okay, I mean I don't want to go into too much details, but if we take sanitary napkins itself, right? Nowadays it's becoming very common to supply to everyone, but there's a lot of research going on that the chemicals used in the napkins actually can cause cancer, and they can cause irritation. So many different prolonged use, they are coming this kind of, and the disposal of them, the wastage that goes in, the pollution that comes from the material used in making them, all these kind of things would come. Those days, traditional culture, people would use a cloth where they could easily wash, reuse. It's like how babies have napkins compared to modern day diapers, right? Diapers give you a lot of issues like diaper rash and this and that. Now, speaking about the other invention of modern day of tampons, right? So, a lot of people are saying that it's amazing, it's more hygienic. Well, no, if you ask most doctors, actually, because the bad blood discharge is kept within, held within, right? And if one doesn't remove it, there's also a chance of what is called as TSS, toxic shock syndrome. It's very rare, but it is still very dangerous, right? when people leave it in for too long. Another issue that comes up besides health is promiscuity. So this is not something that people want to be promiscuous about, but tampons actually lead to a lot of women becoming promiscuous because of the nature of the product. So, like I said, I don't want to go into too much details. But, anyways, we can see from all these points, right, put forward, that the traditional culture was not an opposing culture. The traditional culture given was actually a respectful culture, understanding that this is the time she needs to go on her bio break, and everyone else in the society gives her that space, gives her all facility, gives her all respect, and everyone else takes up the task which one lady was doing. Everyone else is sharing and doing it. Just imagine. So therefore there's a lot of respect in this actually. And in one sense there is no discrimination. She can still chant, she can do her japa, right? She can still worship, she's given a break. And it's good also because they have some separation. Sometimes we say familiarity breeds contempt. The men always go to the temple and do puja, but they become the most aesthetic, right? But the ladies who sometimes can go, sometimes can't go, but they develop such loving feelings for the Lord. There's separation. They say, oh, festival is there today, unfortunately I cannot go. And they are more in remembrance of God rather than the man who's standing in front of the deity thinking, anyways, every day I stand here, I'm just putting my attendance. So there's so much positive side to this. Let us see this. It's so sad that nowadays a lot of people, somehow or other, men, battling against culture, battling against tradition, and thinking that they're supporting the ladies of today. But I think the ladies of today understand better, right? And it's very sad that a lot of people now are going against culture, trying to challenge traditions. Although this is not just an Indian tradition, this seems to be like a worldwide natural tradition of respecting the female gender. Hare Krishna.